Good morning, everybody, here on Live Impact News at 10 o'clock. I'm Jane Monreal. This morning, we are talking special events, concerts, political rallies, holiday celebrations, your local festival, and of course, the World Cup. Security experts say these public gatherings now all fall under the same umbrella, national security events. What does this mean? Joining us now is Michael Lebowitz, a former Department of Justice National Security Division attorney and counterterrorism prosecutor. Michael, you've handled many cases from 9/11 to Al Qaeda, leadership at Guantanamo Bay. Thank you. Appreciate your time this morning for a very important conversation.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks for having me.
So, Michael, you've prosecuted against some of these high profile, most significant terrorism cases in U.S. history. How does that experience shape the way you look at security to something like a concert now?
Well, that's a great question because I have met with many terrorists and had many conversations with them, studied their cases, and they all have different motivations depending on who you're dealing with. But it's usually not good. They're, kind of a bad actor. But I've also worked dealing with state sponsors of terrorism or just state actors or terrorist groups that want to embarrass the United States or cause a little bit of trouble. So there's all that experience shows that you look at it from multiple angles. You look at it, how do you protect everybody? Who do you get involved? Kind of a whole of government approach. It's not just federal government. It's local law enforcement, state police. You want to look at cyber issues. Now we have drones. So there are a lot of factors that you have to take into account. And from my experience, you can never just discount anything because our enemies are always adapting and they're always getting very creative.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, right? Drones, cybersecurity, it's more than just a guy or gal with a gun. What is the bigger danger then as we are navigating these modern times?
So one of the things we really need to look at is incitement online and where it's coming from. For example, we had the UFC at the event at the White House where there was a plot to attack it, and they had a number of young Americans who kind of signed on, and well, at least one of them took tangible steps to acquire ammunition and things like that. But what the big concern is that who started that conversation? I mean, obviously, you want to look for the obvious, the guns, the ammunition, in that case, drones, things like that. But who was inciting them? Who was pushing them to take the next step? And often, again, times it's dangerous times right now. There are terrorist groups that are still out there. Africa, there's a section of Africa right now that is literally being overrun by a terrorist group called JNIM, which is an Al Qaeda offshoot. We have the Iran war. Iran is well known to having proxies that operate around the world, and the Russians, they like to cause mayhem in their own way, particularly online. So I think online incitement is one of the big things to watch out for. That's kind of part of the ISIS playbook from about 10 years ago, where they would, instead of doing the training camps and things like that and sending people overseas, they would try to um, express their propaganda and push individuals to commit lone wolf attacks.
Okay, so walk us through this because this definition of national security event it has expanded so much now. So, for us here, us laymen, keeping your head on a swivel is one thing, but do we need to be scared all the time?
No, and I always sound like a Debbie Downer at the beginning when I give these talks, but no, as Americans, people visiting America, whatever it is, enjoy life. Do not let other fears control what you do. But it's like the old saying, if you see something, say something. You see a bag lying around, don't be embarrassed to call somebody and tell them it's there. Nobody's going to think bad about that because um, these events, a national security event, there's a legal definition where, somebody like a Super Bowl type thing or the World Cup, where the government declares a national security event and there's more emergency funding that goes into preparations. But for things like concerts and local events that might be big in the community but do not, become an official national security event, that's where, people just really pay attention to their surroundings, but don't let it define how they have fun and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, and missing the threat entirely is kind of the a little bit of the mistake. Um, how do these small mistakes add up?
So I'll give you an example. Right before 5 weeks before 9/11, there was the 20th hijacker arrived in the Orlando airport, and he was a jerk, and they treated him like an immigrant, like a migrant, and they sent him home. But what they didn't realize was that in his hands, that the government had, was the contact information for the person that was actually facilitating the hijackers that were already in the country. The lead 9/11 hijacker was in the at the airport waiting for him, and he had a phone card, like a calling card, where he called the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks. And translated to now, the big issue is that information like that falling through the cracks, where the FBI has lost thousands of analysts. They've been tasked with multiple jobs beyond counterterrorism, maybe immigration enforcement and things like that. So the biggest concern is that we have the capabilities to protect things, but that information might be falling through the cracks because the focus and the manpower is so all over the place.
Oh, wow. And then you also are challenged with privacy acts or invading people's privacy, right?
Yes, and that's always ever since really the 1970s, there's always been this big kind of tension between protecting national security and protecting privacy. And I've practiced in front of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, where that really comes to a head. But the United States has a good system of balancing that. Europe is probably more toward the privacy and less toward national security. And that sometimes causes tension with the United States. But these are all things that need to come into play because, we are a nation of laws. And if you put national security first and foremost to the detriment of civil liberties and privacy, then that's not America. So it is always a balancing act. It's been like that for a long time. And it's something that, as a legal professional dealing with FISA and cyber operations or criminal cases, have always had to be cognizant of the civil liberties part of it and privacy.
Okay. And with World Cup, such a big thing here in North America and all of the stadiums across the U.S., what should organizers and venues be focused on right now as there are still weeks ahead of play?
Yeah, I've been giving this conversation about the World Cup a lot too, and there has to be a whole of government approach. It cannot just be one agency just doing things on their own, and it's not. They have task forces. They have to work with foreign governments. Canada and Mexico are involved in this. Um, you have to get the FCC involved for drone protection. But the biggest issue isn't so much the concerns about an attack inside a venue. It's the outside stuff. It's what we talked about. It's the watch parties. It's the logistics. I think cyber attacks are a big thing. The Russians have attacked every Olympic Games apart from the one in China in recent memory. So it's something that, and it's not always a major attack, but you have to look at logistics. Hotels are often targeted if they want to embarrass the United States. Cyber attacks are something that we really need to focus on because some nations might decide to use those because legally a cyber attack usually doesn't cross the threshold into what's considered an armed attack, which means that the response might not be from us an armed attack back. So it's something that's a nuisance that embarrasses, but can still cause a lot of trouble, particularly in a major event like the World Cup.
All right. So, oh gosh, so much to take away. What is the biggest misconception that Americans have about modern terrorism?
I mean, there's a big complacency now. I think the biggest misconception in 2026 is that we're able to stop all these terrorist attacks. We haven't had a major, what Al Qaeda called a spectacular attack since 9/11. Obviously, there's been other attacks that have caused a lot of death and destruction in the United States. But since 2016, funding has gone down a little bit from is this across administrations. And now I think we're at the point where they're starting to lose a lot of the people that are working on this. So I think the concern is that we are vulnerable, and I think people don't realize that. I think people are just happy to go on their lives. I mean, there's so much going on in the world, which is totally understandable. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to Marvel, and he's not going to be Iron Man, so people have a lot of stuff to focus on in their lives. But just always kind of be aware that there's terrorism still out there. Like I mentioned, in Africa, there are terrorist groups that are creating the space to, put together an international component to their organizations. And if they get vicious leadership combined with the space to operate, which is what's going on in Africa, then that's something to be concerned about. And the government needs to let everyone know that, the stuff's out there, but we're working on it, and they're going to put the resources devoted to those threats.
All right. So my takeaway this morning is live your life, but also see something, say something.
I know it sounds basic, but that's a good takeaway for the regular Americans. Yes.
All right. Yeah, like you said, these are the times we live in. All right. What a wonderful world. Michael Lebowitz,
It is.
appreciate your insight this morning. Important conversation as we head into a full summer of major events and really just life as we know it now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jane.